Hello, my name is Olaf. I'm the Code Coach, and welcome to part 3 of how to partition a system. Today we're going to talk about the general emailer. Let's look at some code. In previous videos, we had looked at writing a register new customer use case, which was used to register a new customer on a system, and we had a register method. We were passing in some registration data and it would return a customer. We would validate the registration data. We would turn it into a customer if the validation was successful, and then we would save the customer to a repository, which you can imagine being a database. There was a new requirement to send a welcome email to the newly registered customer, and the developer who did that particular work did it straight in the use case, and this was somewhat suboptimal. Last time we looked at the 3-bucket approach to identifying responsibilities in software, and we identified that the general email functionality that we've got here belonged in bucket 3. You might want to watch the previous video to know what I'm talking about here. So here we've got the general emailing functionality using a SMTP client, a simple mail transfer protocol client. We're newing up the SMTP client using some information for the SMTP host, for the SMTP server coming out of configuration, and then we're using this SMTP client to send the email. And wouldn't it be nice if we could generalize this so we could use any kind of emailer, maybe an Amazon Web Services simple email service client would be kind of cool. Maybe there are other ways of sending emails, maybe out of MailChimp or something like that. And yes, so it would be nice to abstract this out today and make it so that this code can use any kind of emailer. Right, to that end, I have created an iEmailer interface which takes an email, sends it, and doesn't return anything. So if there's any kind of errors, it would manage it via exceptions. There's a couple of emailer implementations. The first one is an SMTP emailer. I've just taken the code that was up here and pasted it into the down here. This is a little bit suboptimal. SMTP client is an disposable in .NET, so I really should be using Scope, but this is fine for now. So I've just copied it over. It will work. I might not clean up as resources as nicely as it should, and it will send the email. There's also an AWS simple email service emailer implementing the same interface, just like the SMTP emailer. I haven't actually implemented this guy. This is a to-do, but if we had the AWS SDK, the software development kit downloaded, it would be easy enough to do this. Sorry, I didn't have time. However, I can still show to you, demonstrate the principle of how we use interfaces to create pluggable software. Cool. So let's actually use this. Here in our use case constructor, let's inject the emailer as well. I'm going to make that, set that null by default, otherwise it's going to break a number of unit tests. We don't want that. And there will be an emailer property, which doesn't exist yet. I'm about to create it. And so I'll make that a private iEmailer, and we'll make that emailer. Brilliant. Oops. Here we go. And what that means is now we can come down here. We've got our emailer being passed in. So emailer.send, which is on the interface, can take the email and the specific SMTP emailer can be removed. So what this means is that any kind of emailer that conforms to the iEmailer interface, which at this case is either our SMTP emailer or our AWS SES emailer, will work. How do I know this? Well, let's switch over to a little console application that I've created earlier on. So here we've got a register new customer use case. We've got a repository, just going to ignore that for now. That was the other parameter on the constructor, but our emailer here is particularly important. So I'm newing up an SMTP emailer. Normally this would be done via an inversion of control container. There is no compilation failure here, and just the same if I was to go ahead and switch in the AWS SES emailer, the use case will take it just the same. It's because both of these implement, the AWS SES emailer and the SMTP emailer both implement, if we kind of come back here, this iEmailer interface. So what I've just demonstrated here is that we can switch out our generic emailing functionality that we had in here, and we can make it pluggable via an interface. And now, without having to change any code in here, very sort of open close principle compliant, the solid principles. Oh, there's an open close principle that says you should write new code rather than modify existing code. This is what we can do now. We can now write, if there was a third emailing way, general emailing, we could implement that particular emailer and use that to send the emails. Maybe a MailChimp one, say MailChimp emailer. We could plug that in. We would have to change no code in here. So hopefully this episode today illustrated how we can make our code so that we can plug in a generic emailer for our generic emailing functionality. Well, thank you very much for tuning into this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Bye-bye.